Mishnayos Chagigah, Perek Gimel, Chapter 3, Mishnah Hey, Mishnah 5. Okay. Now, the discussion here is going to be a Amaretz who is selling pots. And the question is, we should assume that being that the sages decreed that whatever an Amaretz touches is Tameh, anything that he handles is Tameh, therefore we should assume that the pots that he's selling are also Tameh. But we're going to see an exception to that. Min hamoidiyas v'lifnim. If an Amaretz is selling, as we're going to see, earthenware pots, earthenware utensils, small earthenware utensils, pots, cups, jars, he's selling them. And you want to know, can you trust him or not to say that they're tahar? So min hamoidiyas v'lifnim. From a city or a town called Modias, and inward towards Yerushalayim, Ne'amanim al klei cheres. They are going to be trusted regarding earthenware vessels. Men Modias v'lochutz, but from the town of Modias and outward, meaning away from Yerushalayim, ein ne'amanim, they are not trusted. Now, first of all, we have to go through the notes here. Modias was a city 15 mil from Yerushalayim. That's how far it was. So the area that we're going to be saying that an Amaretz is trusted is from Modias towards Yerushalayim. From Modias away from Yerushalayim, they're not trusted. Now, what's the issue here? Why are we trusting him here? Why are we trusting them here when typically we would say that we shouldn't trust an Amaretz? And especially if he's the one that's handling the pots, he's selling them, then he touched them. He should make them impure. So the answer is that clearly an exception was made. Again, another exception was made to the decree of the Chachamim to say that whatever he touches is impure, that you can't trust him. In these cases, and in this specific area, they made an exception. Why is that? And the answer is like this. Let me read to you from the notes. In Yerushalayim, where the Beis HaMikdash is, small earthenware pots were in great demand because they were used for cooking the meat of offerings and for baking flour offerings. That's what they were used for. They were used, basically, they needed them to use them for the carbon meat, right? There was carbon meat that had to be cooked. The ones that you're going to eat, you cook it. And they needed these earthenware vessels to do so. All earthenware had to be brought in from elsewhere, however, because the pottery furnaces needed to produce it were banned from the city due to their heavy smoke, which would have darkened the walls of Yerushalayim and spoiled its beauty. Okay, there you got it. In the area of Yerushalayim, there were no furnaces for making pottery because it would take away the beauty. It would darken the walls of Yerushalayim, spoil its beauty. So Yerushalayim, no furnaces. Had the sages insisted on their rule that utensils of Amei Haaretz are Tamei, then utensils sold by Amei Haaretz would have been unusable for Kodesh, because there is no way to purify earthenware utensils that are Tamei, right? Mm-hmm. You cannot put a earthenware vessel into a mikveh. It doesn't help. So if you're going to say that they are Tamei, the ones that come from the Maaretz are Tamei, you're not going to be able to use them. Therefore, it would come out, only pots made by a chaverim would have been usable for cooking the meat of offerings, right? If a chaver makes the pottery, then you're good, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, but there were too few chaverim near Yerushalayim who were potters to meet the demand. The chaverim just didn't typically handle that. Since the sages, as a rule, do not issue decrees with which most people cannot comply, they felt it necessary to permit the purchase of pots from Amei Haaretz, so that everyone who brought an offering could find a pot in which to cook it. They therefore declared that Amei Haaretz in the area near Yerushalayim, namely from Modias to Yerushalayim, are trusted to vouch for the tahara of their small earthenware pots and cups. Because Midoraisa, according to Torah law, you can trust them. If they say so, you're allowed to trust them. Here, they had to go ahead and they had to trust the Amei Haaretz about their earthenware pots, because if they didn't, there would clearly be a shortage of them. Now, the next thing they're bringing down in notes is the fact that we are speaking very specifically about earthenware, as it says, Nemanam al klei cheres. They're believed regarding earthenware vessels. That means when it comes to metal vessels, they're not believed. Why? Because a metal vessel, you put in a mikveh. No big deal, right? You can get the vessel from the Amoritz. It could be considered tamei, but you'll put it in the mikveh, and it'll be fine. So therefore, there's no kind of issue of a shortage of metal vessels. Therefore, they didn't trust them regarding the metal vessels. And then another thing that brings in from the Tosfos Yantiv, the Mishnah gives permission to purchase small earthenware pots from Ami Haaretz between Maidis and Yerushalayim. It does not extend the permission a similar distance to Yerushalayim in all directions. Okay, meaning, right? Maidis to Yerushalayim is one direction, 15 mil. How about the other directions? The answer is no. Since Maidis was a center for pottery, the sages granted permission within this area only. Basically, in order to get things done, this would be the area that would make sense to be lenient in. All right. So now what we have here right now is very specifically that in this specific area, the Ami Haaretz will be trusted regarding earthenware vessels in relation to using them to cook the meat of sacrifices. And we allow all the small types of vessels for that. Large kli cheres, large earthenware vessels will be discussed later. Metal vessels, we do not trust them about. Now, one thing that's important to understand is that the point of this Mishnah is to bring out another difference between Kodesh and Truma. Right? This is another example where it will be lenient regarding Kodesh for the Ami Haaretz, but not regarding Truma. And the reason that is going to be so is because of the fact that if you use an earthenware vessel for Kodesh, right, the earthenware vessel absorbs the Kodesh. And once it absorbs the Kodesh, a day or two later, depending on which carbon it was, what's inside becomes nicer. It becomes forbidden to eat. There's no way to kosher these things. You can't put them in a mikveh to begin with, and after you use them, you can't kosher them. So at the end of the day, there's a big problem with these earthenware pots and pans that people typically used. If you don't trust the Ami Haaretz, they're all tamei, you can't put them in mikveh. Even after you trust the Ami Haaretz, you got a problem that you can't kosher them once they're used for carbon meat. Because whatever absorptions go into the walls of the vessel from the carbon will become forbidden, and you can't kosher it, because you can't kosher earthenware vessels. Now, so therefore, there's clearly a shortage issue when it comes to earthenware vessels, and therefore the Chachamim said, earthenware vessels we trust the Ami Haaretz. But Truma, let's say you go ahead and cook Truma in an earthenware vessel. Truma doesn't become nicer. There's no limit on how long a Kohen can eat Truma for. So at the end of the day, if the Kohen uses, let's say a Kohen is going to go, I mean, we're not going to trust him regarding the Truma anyway. But at the end of the day, there's also no issue of a shortage of pottery pots by Truma, because even after you use them, you cook their Truma in them, you can still use them again. So at the end of the day, we have no real reason to have to go ahead and trust the Ami Haaretz to allow their usage of the pots. When it comes to Truma, you find a pot from somewhere to use, and you don't get it from an Ami Haaretz, you get it from a chaver, and you know what? And you reuse it, because you could reuse it. There's nothing halachically saying you can't reuse it. But Ba'ashe'en came, we're dealing with cheres, you have a number of issues. You have the issue of the fact that if it's tama, you can't put it in the mikveh. If you buy from a chaver, saving it isn't going to help you, because then you can't use it again, because it absorbed from the carbon, and it's nicer. It's leftover, which is forbidden to eat, and you can't kasher cheres. So you're going to use the cheres again. It's going to what's absorbed in the walls is going to come out and make what you're eating aser. Therefore, at the end of the day, we have a big issue with the pottery, and therefore we allowed the Ami Haaretz, we trusted them when it came to the pottery to be used for Kodesh. Now the Mishnah continues. Ketzad. What's the case here? Hakadar Shuhu Meicher Akaderes. You've got this potter. He's selling pots. Nechnes lift now. He could be bringing those pots from outside of Modias. They don't have to be made in Modias. He can bring them from outside of Modias. But Nichnas Lifnim and Modias, once he entered within the area between Modias and Yerushalayim, we say like this: Hu Hakadar, he is the potter, Vehena Kederes, they are the pots, Vehena Leichim, and they are the buyers, Neman, then he's going to be believed. What does this mean? It means the following. It means that, number one, the seller is the potter who brought them in. Meaning, we are not talking about, let's say, a potter who is even within Medias Yerushalayim, and we ask him, where did you get the pots from? Oh, I got it from a different potter from outside Medias. No. That's not going to work. Mm-hmm. You have to deal with the potter himself. The potter himself brings it in. He is trusted. To say that another potter who got it from him is trusted to buy from him, that you can't do. Number two, that these pots being sold are the pots he brought and not others that he added to those he brought in. Another stringency is that it has to be this potter who came from, again, he got these pots, he brought them in from even, let's say, outside of Medias. Now he's coming into Medias. Now he wants to buy some more. He wants to now rely on another Am Haaretz to buy pots to go ahead and sell further in towards Yerushalayim. Can't do that. He cannot go and rely on another Am Haaretz to buy pots from him. This is the guy we deal with. He is the guy, he brought in the pots, and the pots that he brings in, the pots that he has, are the ones that we believe him about. And the third thing is, it has to be, these are the buyers. They saw him bring them. You have to see the guy bring them in. Basically, it can't be, as they say, as I explain here, even when he is vouching for the tahara of the pot that he actually brought himself, a chaver buying the pot can trust him only if he saw the potter actually bring the pots. Others cannot take the seller's word that they are tahar. These are all stringencies that they made regarding trusting this Am Haaretz. And then the Mishnah concludes, Yatza ein neman. Now, after he's out of Medias, the same guy, the same pots that he brought in, and then he goes outside of Medias, not trusted anymore. So these are all the different conditions that are needed to be able to trust this person, the Am Haaretz. And the last thing that they said was the fact that you have to see these are the pots that he brought in. Okay.
That he made himself.
No, didn't make themselves. It didn't say he made them. It says he brought them in. Brought them in. Now, let's go to Chofetz Chaim now. Daled. Now, so he said that if you see a Beinoni that he's committing this sin or he's not keeping this halacha, you know he's doing something wrong, and he's done it many times. You still should give him the benefit of the doubt that he doesn't realize. But let's say it appears he knows it's aser. And he did it intentionally. For instance, we're talking about he did something that is obviously wrong. And he knows it's wrong, and we see he did it intentionally. There's no question what he did. This is not a question, And he's eating a crab, he's eating a lobster, right? What, he doesn't know it's a lobster? He doesn't know it's aser. Everybody knows it's aser. There's certain things that everybody knows is forbidden, and there's no real way to say, oh, he didn't realize what it was. And therefore, and you see that he was intentional. So now what? Toli bazeh. It depends on this, says the Chofetz Chaim. Again, if regarding other matters, he's in the middle of the road. Typically, he's going to stay away from sin. And so again, we see him stumble, he did something wrong. But we know in other things, he's still Beinoni. He still is the type of person who typically will not be committing sins, or at least intentionally. And you only saw him do it once, and he didn't do it publicly, he did it privately. You caught him doing something. You may not reveal what he did wrong, even not in front of him. And if you reveal it, you're guilty. Maybe he did tshuva. He did it once, he fell into the trap, gave into his temptations, but after he did it, he feels terrible. And because of that, already Hashem has accepted him. The primary point of tshuva is your regret. Now you go telling people, spreading, oh, I saw this guy do this. He's gonna be disgraced in their eyes. After he's already possibly regretted and been forgiven. Therefore, the person who now this wicked person now reveals it is going to sin, because at the end of the day, although it's clear that he knew what he was doing, how do you know he didn't do tshuva yet? And because he might possibly have done tshuva, you have no right to go ahead and reveal it to other people. A second. Right. Because perhaps he did tshuva. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.